Maria
Hello.
Pia De Vito. I'm so happy to be here with you for this first interview for my PhD. So could you introduce yourself in a few words?
I'm a singer, composer and lyricist. I come from the jazz tradition, but I allowed to have a place in my music world, also my roots, the Neapolitan roots. But the experience and the view of jazz is permeated all my work. So I'm looking for proximities in between languages, musical languages, or actual languages. It's a part of my work that it's very important.
Great. Do you think you belong to a certain style of jazz?
I think I did so many different things. I played and sang so many different kind of music that it's difficult to find one style or one word to describe what I do, because I sing also music by Johnny Mitchell, great songwriters, or I work with electronics, or I work around Baroque music and improvisation. So it's a variety of things, of languages.
Yes, absolutely. How did you learn to sing? You followed some teachers, or you?
Well, I started as a natural singer, self-taught, and then I studied for 3 years with a teacher in Napoli, and he was an opera teacher. But mainly with him, I was studying techniques and a little bit of Mozart, because I didn't like very much the big opera singing, and so we worked on the sound, and it was very, very nice. Then I started singing at the same time as I chose to sing jazz, and so from then on I had periodic meetings with different teachers, short time, but I started building my own, method throughout my experiences.
And do you have some persons of reference that really helped you in this process of learning?
You mean as teachers? Well, I must mention the meeting I had, I don't know, now it's already 7-8 years, with two great ladies, two teachers, American ladies, but they live in Italy since a long time, Lisa Payin and Marianna Brilla. They have a method. They call it, oh God, you can make editing
no problem.
with this. No. Oh God, this is
vocal
balance.
Vocal balance.
Vocal balance. Okay. So Lisa Payin and Marianna Brilla, and they have this method. They developed this approach to voice, spoken voice and singing voice, called vocal balance, and really meeting them has refreshed my voice and renewed my way of singing and my way of studying daily. And they've been very important to me, and they kept me keeping studying, really,
That's great.
I'm 58 now, and
But so you just told me that it was just a few years ago.
Yeah, exactly. But it was like after so many studies, techniques and things, to go back to natural.
Yes.
So back to when I was 15, 16 and started singing, but in touch with the natural singing. At the same time, all the experiences of these years are not lost naturally.
Of course.
So it's I found a great freedom again, you know, and very
It's very
nice.
interesting.
Yeah.
What is the importance of transmission for you? So do you teach somewhere? Do you teach regularly or just sometimes? Or
For many years, I've been teaching in workshops mainly, but since 10 years I'm teaching in conservatories. And
here in Italy?
Yeah, yes. And I like it very much. And what I like about it is through the teaching of jazz, starting from the tradition, you know, I like helping the students find their way to be in it, you know, in the experience of improvisation and instant composition and then composition. So I like that very much.
That's great.
And I like to transmit something also very practical, you know, from a person that is still on stage, you know, and
Yes,
and
of
teaching.
course.
So
And what is the role of, what is the place of tradition and of modernity in your teaching?
they're both there. I mean, I wish sometimes I could have the possibility to not to start from the tradition, you know, but sometimes students need, there are things that they don't know, and
Of
it's
course.
important for them
Of course.
to understand in order to get to understand what it is, the modernity, you know,
Yes.
what is the contemporary jazz singing, how things have gone, you know, and what's the next step, you know.
And so you teach in jazz departments?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And do you try to create a link between tradition and modernity also?
Sure. Absolutely. But that's what I do also when I work on
Project
music
yes.
from Neapolitan roots, you know. It's always that's the point, you know. Also, I like to think about tradition using another word, which is heritage.
Heritage.
So we
Beautiful.
inherit, you know, this great tradition, you know, of this tree of jazz, you know, that started in the States. But then there is the wonderful, you know, heritage that I have from Napoli, which is an incredible place musically in the centuries. There is music from the Renaissance. There's always been a métissage, a natural métissage, because Napoli was a door, you know, over the Mediterranean Sea, where Spanish culture, French culture, Arabic culture, all were connected, inseparable. So it's a very interesting place. So, and naturally, I'm not interested in singing the Neapolitan tradition, the Neapolitan heritage as it is, but I like to have my view on it, you know, my vision of what that poetic, incredible world, musical world can, you know, can be alive today.
Yes, yes, yes.
Not in a frame of. So that's, for instance, my work, you know, putting lyrics in Neapolitan to the music of Ralph Towner or John Taylor.
Yes.
It's that, you know,
Yes,
it's
yes,
putting
yes.
the language and the way of singing in action, in contact with other material, other
Absolutely.
frames.
Yes, yes, yes. That's very interesting. And could you tell me if we look at the jazz influences that you have, could you say a few names of instrumentalists or singers that really influenced you in a way?
Well, I decided to sing jazz at 19 because of a recall of Ella Fitzgerald. That I saw on TV when I was 6 years old, you know, in a show by Frank Sinatra. So her singing scatter and singing a ballad. That's what I recalled when I was 19, and I said, I want to do something free with my voice. Because, well, that's a long story there. To make it short, she was the reason why I started singing jazz, and I started from scat. And then, you know, all the great, it was a continuous discovery of the great singers, you know, Sarah, Carmen McRae, Betty Carter, Sheila Jordan. Betty Carter was also very, very important and inspiring for me. But then also this is Chica. She wants to be
Chica.
part of the interview. And also, in the meantime, I discovered Norma Winston, for instance, and some European voices that I started, you know, being very intrigued with, like Ursula Zuzak, Lauren Newton, and Maggie Nichols, and then Maria Joao, and it's beautiful, no? Or Lena Villemark, Sid Zelendres, and my beloved Sid Zelendres. I love her work with words and without words. So all these singers have been, you know, have been a surprise for me. I like singers that have something
special
in the sound, you know, something in nature, you know. Then there are singers that are more intellectuals, but are very interesting too, you know. And it's we're all different.
Absolutely, yeah. That's what's make it.
Yeah.
Yes, interesting. And if we listen to all your recordings, you have so many recordings that I was really impressed when I was listening to all those beautiful music you have done since the years 90. And we can really see that you have so many influences, classical influences, world music influences, traditional music also. So there's this project with Rama Mani and Mr. Mani from India that you really try to mix those two cultures. That was very interesting, I think. And also this classical project, you have this record
Il Pergolese,
yes, that's
on the music of
Pergolese. So you have so many different influences, and it's so rich.
I would say interests and influences. With Ramamani, I was invited by a French institute, L'Espal, it's in Le Mans, and they used to organize a festival called La Nuit de la Voix.
Okay.
So I sang with Maria Joao once and twice with Ramamani, and both times I went to Bangalore to study. But the interest in Indian music and rhythmics started before, when I did my recording Phone in 1997. Yes. I studied with Federico Sanesi, tabla player, because I was so interested, you know, and excited, you know, by that, the transmission, you know, of the rhythmic forms of the tabla done with the voice. So you know a lot about that. So for me, it was an occasion of studying, you know. It was not my idea to put together the two cultures, but I was the one that proposed to have this meeting with her, because her recording Jyoti with Charlie Mariano really was a big, beautiful surprise.
Wonderful, it's wonderful.
So you realize how many things still you can study and learn, you know. So that's
it's infinite.
That's the thing. And then also I realized how serious it is, you know, to do something like that, and how, if you want to do it with a certain respect, you have to dedicate years and years, and I couldn't. So I must say I flew over, you know, taking little bits and pieces from many different things that I've done. But then, you know, your way, it's enriched by all these things. But but you have to make it your own.
Yes, absolutely. And you were talking about rhythms And
Yeah.
I think in the record Tumulti,
Yes.
it's also like incredible what you do and how rhythms are so important in the way you sing and in the way you see the music. So could you tell me a little bit more about
Tumulti.
yes, about Tumulti, or about your vision of rhythm when you sing?
Rhythm is so important.
Yes.
For me, is as important as melody.
Mm-hmm.
It's vital, you know. And I like to practice it in any language that I meet, you know. So I learned a lot lately about Brazilian music doing this project Cor Coração, where I translated in Neapolitan the tunes by Chico Buarque Ginga.
Yes.
And naturally, you know, there is the Partido Alto, and then certain samba goes like this. You learn about different dances. All this is all stuff that I, you know, put in my closet, in my bag, you know,
Yes.
and to play with the next occasion, you know. So it's crucial.
Yeah.
Also, I started being interested in rhythms, part of the. Well, I have to say that when I was 16 and I was singing already the music from Napoli, I met a professor from University, l'Istituto Orientale di Napoli, and he had a collection of music and instruments from East Europe.
Okay.
So and practically in this group we were playing music from Bulgaria, Macedonia, Greek, and then Spain, and then Portugal, and then South America. It was incredible, and there I learned about 7/8, 9/8, 11/8, you know.
Yes.
Then I started singing jazz and improvised, and I was studying a lot of bebop and stuff, but I was easily bored about myself rhythmically. So
Okay.
I thought, my God, you know, how can I try to be less predictable, you know, when I improvise? And then I started recalling about these things, studying a little bit of Indian music, you know, trying to things from outside to come and help me, instead of getting trapped in some super practicing of rhythmic patterns, or, you know, as
Yes.
much as, you know, patterns to improvise.
Yes,
That's something that I don't like. I don't suggest. But but anyway, so it's been vital for me to try to find new ways of approaching rhythm.
That's very interesting. Yeah. And about the rhythm of society now, do you think you are influenced by the new technologies and just the atmosphere outside, like the world has a particular rhythm, and I think the rhythm of the society is increasing in a way. So do you
This is a complex
yeah.
question, because technology, which helps incredibly society, is also killing society. I don't want to say too many things, but the continuous pushing and calling of you know, telephone, WhatsApp, social medias, and mail and calls and stuff. I mean, this is fragmenting, you know, our attention, our ability to stay in a place and be happy and be able to produce something, to find a post to read, you know, to. So also today it's a critical day. We just had the elections, you know, and
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean the rhythm is also the vibration of the people around, you know, and it's not an happy moment around here, you know, and around many places in the world. And
Yes.
we are all connected, you know, so we're all affected by all this.
Yes.
So this is having a strong effect on me. I mean, I need moments of complete solitude to, you know,
And so you can cut all the...
I'm starting doing it, you know,
yeah.
also some hours of the day, telephone off. Because it's important to gather, you know, with yourself and say, okay.
Yes, I understand.
Because it's continuous, this bum, 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 bum.
Yeah.
And, but I'm a girl from the last century. So on young people also this has an effect.
Yes.
Yeah, so there is a lot of information. I don't know if that means that there is a lot of culture. There's a lot going on. I don't know if, you know, if there is time to have the next Coltrane or the next Mozart or the next, you know, anyway, it's an interesting time anyway. Some also very particularly original forms or artists are coming out, you know, there are you know, spreading out from this moment, you know, so there's always something good going on.
Absolutely. And do you think you are also influenced by other artistic expressions?
Oh, a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I get inspiration from philosophers or from the work of some artists, poetry a lot, literature a lot, you know. So my inspiration comes from, it's pretty intuitive, the beginning of an idea. But when I'm composing, it can be, I can start from harmony, you know, something that hypnotizes me, you know, and then I start working, or I start from lyrics, you know, and the inspiration comes.
And when you write, when it starts from lyrics, for example, so does it first come in your native language or in English or?
Well, naturally, in my native language, it becomes very easy and deep, while in English I have to be a little more organized and rational because it's not my native language. And not living in the States, but living in Italy and not having, you know, daily, even if I see all the movies or read books in English without a problem, sometimes, you know, the forms betray you, you know, so I have always to do second and third check, you know, on the English lyrics, where naturally when I write in Neapolitan,
it's more fluent.
Yeah, it comes from
natural.
You know, yeah, it's almost an archetypical thing, you know. It comes really from deep within, because it's a language that I heard when I was a kid.
Yes, yes, of course. And what is the role of a melody for you?
Well, we are the melodic instrument per eccellenza, no? Par excellence. And melody is very important. Yes, yes. And also I like a melodic approach to improvisation. Even when I'm doing free improvisation, I like that approach. But I enjoy very much also the effect part, you know.
Yeah. And you like the interpretation of melodies, or do you like to really stay close to what was written?
No, I like to move it. I like to move it, but not necessarily a lot. For instance, my approach to the world of Joni Mitchell, it's been very respectful of her way of singing the tunes. Even in some points it has been literal, because I felt that her intention was so strong in that way that I didn't want to touch it, like it was a piece of classical music, you know. But then in general, that's our rare cases. In general, I for sure try as much as I can to find my way to be on the tempo and to find what are the lyrics that are more, you know, the keywords that really are, you know.
And do you also
opening something up for me that maybe are different from the original? So
yes, yes, yes.
There are also it depends on also naturally, if not that I sing very often standards, but when it happens there, you know, I with all the listening I've done of it, you know, I know the language. I know how to be in it and how to try to get out of it.
Yes, yes. And do you also use your voice as if it was an instrument, like
Absolutely.
to transmit an emotion?
For sure.
Without any lyrics?
For sure, yeah. That's possible and strong.
Yes, very strong. Do you have one favorite song in all your repertoire? Like the song of all the years that you have?
Well, not really. There are so many.
Yes.
One song I'm very affectionate of Around Midnight, because it was a song that I sang one of my first appearances in radio, and that, you know, gained me the participation at the first important festival, you know. So, but there are so many. The Flowers, Love Something by Duke Ellington, but or
so those are not on your records.
No. Or another song that I love particularly is Horses in the Rain by Django Bates and Cecil Anderson.
Oh yeah. This
is one of my favorite tunes.
And of yours? Do you have one?
Of mine?
Yes.
Of mine, Il Paradiso dei Cacciutelli.
That's my favorite too. I'm honest, very honest.
Oh, thanks. That's that was a very lucky composition, you know, a form that came together by itself, and I still love it.
Yeah, I must admit this is marvelous.
Thanks.
You were talking about improvisation.
Yeah.
About free improvisation also. How did you learn to improvise, and how do you live improvisation?
Well, I've been lucky because by one side in Neapolitan singing there's always a slight part of improvisation in the way you end a phrase, you know, you decorate a phrase, and that's something that may have helped me. But when I decided to sing jazz, really the day I decided to sing jazz, I passed through a newspaper place, you know, and they were selling records, and I picked up a record where there was one tune by Ella Fitzgerald. There was Airmail Special, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. So I go home, I hear that thing and get completely crazy. And I stayed in until I learned it by heart. And then I started going around town and say, do you know any jazz musician? And finally they sent me to a piano player, and he said, would you sing jazz? No, I said, no, I know this. So the guy got excited because I thought I could do God knows what. I knew only that. So I started singing standards. He told me about the real book. You know, I started buying things, buying records and stuff. And then, I remember he told me, I went there with Sophisticated Lady. I got crazy about Sophisticated. I went there and I sang it, and he said, oh, fantastic, now you improvise on that. And I said, what the hell do you mean improvise on that? This is so difficult, I cannot. So that was not a very good idea, you know, it was so But then I started going to see rehearsals of friends, and they were moved by my constantly being there. So they say, you come to the next concert and sing a couple of tunes. Then I sang Round About Midnight and the blues. And just before going on stage, you know, the trumpet player said, okay, you're going to sing the chorus twice, and then you improvise. I said, no, I don't want to improvise. No, you have to improvise. So I improvised on the spot on stage, never having had improvised before. Yes. And I was like, I didn't know what I did, you know. But then they handed me the recording of that cassette. I still have it. and it's a very strange solo, I must say, but I was never out of tune, you know. So that comforted me.
Have good ears.
And then I started, you know, improvising, you know.
Yes, yes.
So poor the people that were my audience at the beginning, because I was like a kamikaze. Yeah. But that, you know, the important thing, you know, about improvisation is doing it. So when the students come to me and they say, oh, I have a problem with improvisation, I say, there is a linguistic problem here. I say, you don't have a problem with improvisation, you don't do it. You don't accept to do it and be probably sound a little bit shitty. No? But if you do it, then, you know, the things open together with all the infos that you gather and all the food that you give to your subconscious, so that then you know what you're doing, you know the music and everything, but you have, you know, you've been your own coach to do that every day, to risk a little bit every day. So I've been lucky, you know, because I was like kicked on stage.
You were lucky, but then you worked on it like...
Yeah, but because that was the main thing that I wanted to do.
Yes, yes.
More than singing the ballads or torch songs or being the pretty singer with the flower in, you know?
And when you improvise, do you have... do you prefer to improvise on chord progressions or on a mode or on a
whatever the composition needs, you know.
Free improvisation. What is your preference?
I can say that I these 10 years of working very hard on improvising on chords and then improvising modal, you know, made me feel, you know, strong enough to try then to find my way to improvise on a tune by Rita or Ralph with Neapolitan lyrics, and then improvising, you know. That meant for me studying constantly and finding a new sound, because for sure I couldn't use the bebop lyrics or stuff, you know. So getting in tune with the music, with the atmosphere, it means not only getting in tune tonally, but getting in tune with the sound, so that affects your way of improvising, affects your instrument. Yes. So we have a metamorphic instrument, so that's great. We can, you know, adapt and approach virtually any kind of music.
Yes. And when you improvise the syllables that you use, do you think it's something that you create from the American tradition, or, I mean, that comes from there, or do you think you really have now your own particular way of...
I have my instinctive way to act with it. I don't think about it anymore. But naturally, as I said, if I'm improvising on a Johnny Mitchell tune or with a song in English, it's probably that I'm gonna go towards certain sounds, you know, more like thinking like a trumpet, you know. But I mean, in the way that Chet Baker would do it, you know, it's just changing with certain syllables, the overtones that are going to ring, you know, so you have a certain quality of the sound, you know. And so naturally, and then if I'm improvising on something very melodic or samba-like, or the lyrics are going to be slightly different, you know. Like the rhythmic syllables also change, you know.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
And I realized that, and I like it, that sometimes the kind of sound that I do, thinking about a snare drum mixed with the tabla or with a conga, or the idea of a bass drum, you know, it just mix everything. I like it.
So you kind of create something.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think that when you practice really in your music improvisation, in time it changes you, because all the new thing that you meet and that you learn and that you discover become part of you. And if you're not sticking with imitation of that, or if you're not going into that specific discipline, all this becomes part of you.
Yes. And do you think for students it's important to learn by imitation first, to have a kind of vocabulary to...
I think that we learn everything by imitation.
Yeah.
How to walk, how to talk. So we have the opportunity to study with Ella Fitzgerald, with Sarah Vaughan, with Betty Carter. They're all there. We can listen. I mean, that I didn't have a jazz singing teacher. I learned from records.
Yes.
And from, you know, the desire of learning more, understanding more how a thing was working, and if it was working for me, or imitating the sound of Sarah Vaughan that had a voice completely different from mine, to see how it felt. Observing the behavior of an artist is another thing. You know, you watch the syllables, you see the sound, you see the phrasing. You know, that's so important.
Yes.
It's and you learn from listening. Books are for help. Teachers are facilitators. But the thing is the relationship between you and your listening. You and the taste that you develop listening to music. Yes. I had completely different tastes in jazz when I started. Now I'm completely... I still love things that I loved then, but then I love also a lot of other things.
And you were also talking about composition.
Yeah.
So do you have... well, is it easy for you to compose? Do you have a process, or...
Well, as I said, I have many different kind of processes in order to compose. There is a composition starting on the piano from a harmonic formula that starts haunting me, and then I have to write something on top of it, or starting from lyrics, or from some rhythmic form. Every time it can be different, or there is something poetic that inspires me, and then and can be very, you know, hard process sometimes. You know, takes weeks on certain little details. Other times everything comes out. Other times I'm improvising with the use of electronics, so I start improvising with lyrics, and then tunes come out. So very different approaches. Yes.
And in your career, did you, or since you create music, do you form a pair with someone, like with an instrumentalist that you are really close enough to really have a project together for several years and compose together, or? Well,
I must say that I've had a lot of great experiences and meeting with people. So I worked, when I did my first work on Neapolitan music, Nauplia, with Rita Marcotulli, and I did other two recordings with her. And that was, we were on Nauplia, we worked together. But I put lyrics on her composition. We worked together about the arranging of a Neapolitan composition. Then I met, when I worked with John Taylor and Ralph Town, it was the same thing, and it was great. And then I worked with Danilo Rea and So Pietro Paoli a lot for the homage to Joni Mitchell and many other things. You know, I like long collaboration because you develop trust and also an easiness to let go and to really try something different. And because you know well each other, and yes, and lately with Taufik, but also then there are the magic encounters on another plan, like with Chico Buarque. That's on a poetical plan. That's another thing. But
and what is now your relationship with your own voice?
Well, I must say quite good. Especially as I started focusing this method, you know, of vocal balance, that has been a process of really self-healing through this process. So I know what to do when my voice it's a little, you know, tired. I know how to talk, not to hurt me, because when you teach,
yes,
that can be, you know, you talk a lot, and I'm very happy. Also, you know, having done so much.
Yes.
At the moment, I must say, I'm in a moment where poetry, where song forms are really interesting for me. I'm more interested in a very meaningful way of using the voice more than the virtuoso thing. I like the natural virtuosity that comes out with improvisation, you know. But that's a phase, you know. I have many different phases. You know.
And do you think your voice is changing with time?
Naturally it is. Yes. Naturally it is. It has, you gain, this is a natural process, you gain low notes, which is beautiful. And it's up to you and your ability to stay in balance, not to lose anything on top. You know, you have to be flexible, you know, to keep yourself in shape. And I know that I have a little less strength than when I was younger. Really strength in terms of energy, and that also is up to you to do something. I'm not good for things like running or something like that, but I do Tai Chi when I can, but just in summer I swim. And these things are important to be in a good relationship with my voice.
Yes. And you have a vocal hygiene, or?
Yeah, for sure. My little humming when I wake up, and my vocalizing when I'm under the shower, really are a good start.
Yes.
And start being very delicate, you know. And working on the relaxation of the muscles and the ability to keep the liberty of this area and let the rest work economically, you know. So little fragments of songs that I'm singing lately, or I even use some things that I used to hate when I was 20, and the first teacher used to propose me this thing like this. There is this vakai, which is an old method to intonate the intervals. So there are these small composition with syllables. It's in Italian. I think it has been written in 1800. Or I may say some stupid things. Is this it?
Vakai.
Yeah,
I don't know
but it's a very, very old thing. Yeah,
so those are
1833. So it's
about
scale interval of third and fourth in Italian and in English. But the way they are written, you know, makes you think about the articulation. I found something very useful using it after, you know, meeting these teachers, because then I was not working on thinking about the operatic idea, but the texture that I use when I speak and when I sing, I sing my things, which are not operatic at all.
And
jazzy or not.
Jazzy or not, absolutely. What place do you think you have as a singer or as a woman in a man world, musical world?
Well, after all these years, I can say that I think I have my place at the table, as they say. And for me, it has always been vital, the appreciation and the esteem of my colleagues, you know, and the relationship with my colleagues, because our music is a peer-to-peer music, you know. For me, it's so important to have a great, you know, feeling and relationship with people I play with, you know, so I always felt respected, and I respect everybody, and I like this.
Okay. And do you feel musically close to other European jazz singer, or do you really feel that you are in a known path? Like
Well, I mean, I've been listening so much of Norma, Sidsel, Maria. I mean, we are not living in a bunker, you know. I think you have thousands of influences.
Yes,
for
yes,
sure.
of course.
They have influences in me. Only they act from my subconscious, you know. I never deliberately, you know, do it, but for sure my you know, the way of vocalizing of Norma, you know, when I heard it the first time, the azimuth was like, yeah, you know, this is a great sound.
Yes, it's incredible.
This is a great way of phrasing, of improvising, you know, this is completely another thing, you know, these things are, you know, printed in your heart, you know, after you've heard those things. So they're all part of me, and they come out.
And you think you are part of a special tendency or movement in jazz?
Well, I think that we're all searching, you know, and there are all places and countries where there is, for instance, more audience for certain kinds of vocal experimentation, for instance. I don't know, I think about Gretje Bima in Holland, or what is Sidsel doing now, you know. It's very special. I don't know if it would be so easy and, you know, for an audience here, or, you know, environments are important also. So, I mean, in the end, the exchange of all these things is great. We live on this, no?
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you, Maria Pia. This is so interesting for me.
Cristallina come una rugiada fina che sticcia da parlia.